So many desires, or as many desires, so many blankets. Covering the radiance of the Spirit. We have to uncover to discover. We have to uncover, discover. We have to uncover, discover.
Welcome, everyone, to the Divine Discoveries podcast. Here we are back with the band once again. We just had our 1 month anniversary yesterday, and it feels like sometimes it feels like it's just flew by, but this really felt like it was a while. It took a while to get to episode 2, but I'm glad to have the band back together. We have Christiane, we have Vikram, and we have a very special guest who I'm not going to introduce to you guys right now, but it's going to be a real treat. So stay tuned for that. We're going to go ahead and get started so we don't keep you from the special guest for very long. I'm going to go ahead and start the invocation prayers, and as soon as I'm done, we'll be engaging with our guest. So first we start with the Guru Mantra. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshiyamamritat. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Om Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Om Shri Rama Jaya Rama Jaya Jaya Rama. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Thank you. God bless and welcome everyone. I'd like to at this time, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a very special guest with us. And we didn't quite anticipate that we would have a guest this soon in our show, but I couldn't resist once I heard that a good friend of mine just attended the very holy and sacred festival in India called the Maha Kumbha Mela. Many of you may have heard of it and know that it's still in progress until the end of February. So I'd like to introduce Gokul Pai, who is our guest today. And he is a seeker of both financial wisdom and spiritual truth, a chartered accountant and CPA based in Virginia. He works with a leading development bank, helping shape global financial policies. But beyond his professional world, he is a passionate traveler and a devoted student of Indian spiritual traditions, currently deepening his study of the Vedas. Recently, he attended, as I said, the Kumbh Mela in India, one of the largest and most historic spiritual gatherings in the world. Today, he joins us to share his experiences, observations, and insights from this grand event. So, Gokul, I'd like to welcome you, give you a warm welcome to join us on Divine Discoveries as our very, very first guest. We're very honored and thankful to have you.
Thanks, Brad, and thanks for inviting me. And it's my pleasure to be on your channel and to share my experience. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Gokul. I think I'm going to start off the questioning here. So I have my first question. It's a big one, but I'm looking forward to hearing from you. What was your overall experience like of attending the Maha Kumbha Mela, an event that occurs once every 144 years? And what exactly inspired you to make the big trip? And if you could also please tell us where it was held and the significance of the location, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So this was not a planned visit. So I had official trip and planned to go to India, and I would say this was a divine calling. There was a lot of news and information in the social media, and many of my friends had planned. And then I thought, why not go there? Because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and it has a lot of significance because this Kumbh, which happens in Prayagraj in India, it happens like every 6 years, which we called as Half Kumbh, and then every 12 years, which we call as the complete Purna Kumbh. And then the 12 cycle repeats, and it is like after 144 years that this unique placement is happening, which is once in a lifetime opportunity. So I thought, why not go there? And the Kumbh is all about a religious gathering. It's like around 400 million people visit over the period of 45 days of the gathering. So it's the largest religious gathering happening in this world. And one thing which inspired me to visit is the different institutions and the religious spiritual heads and saints who will be visiting, whom we call sadhus, who are visiting this in several large numbers. So it's an opportunity to be at a place where we have like different institutions which foster religious and spiritual messages across the world, and we all get that to see at one place. And my overall experience was very positive because it was one place where I could meet different sadhus. I could feel the religious vibration, the spiritual vibration. While we were walking around the place, there were the chants, there was satsangs, there was the music, and the overall vibration was very good. There were a lot of, and especially one would talk about the crowd at this place, but if you walk during early morning or a little later during when the crowd is dispersed, it feels really good walking around because there were a lot of these religious institutions who had set up their stalls. There were like the popular ones, including ISKCON, and there was BAPS, the Swaminarayan group, and there was something we call as Akhadas, or the religious sects called the Naga Sadhus, and there were 13 such sects and different institutions which had set up the stall. So you could meet different heads of these institutions. There was yoga, there was meditation camps happening, there was discourses, so you could blend yourself into these things. So it felt really good and spiritually rejuvenated when I came back here.
Thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Gokul. That's truly a very unique opportunity to go there and experience that. And one of the things that comes to mind for me that I'm curious to learn about is, while there, what sorts of spiritual activities and practices did you witness that were unique, that people may not know happens over there?
Yeah. So I this time visited as a very curious traveler, but in the hindsight, probably if there is a next Kumbh, I get an opportunity, I will spend more time there, at least a week's time, because my presence there was only a day and a half, which found very less. But in that little time, I was able to get a sense of what's happening and visit different these institutions and the stalls and camps which different organizations had put. So there are different things to look at because it's a huge gathering. And Kumbh, as we say, it's all about sadhus and different religious saints who had set up their stalls and camps, and they were doing different activities. So they come from different religious groups following different traditions. So some follow what we in spirituality we call Advaita dualism. Some follow certain specific Vaishnavism and Shaivism and different kind of. So it depends, like what kind of faith and fall. There is a place for everyone there. There were people like Naga sadhus who were like total renunciates and who live in forest. And so I was lucky enough to talk to different sadhus and heads of different institutions, even though it was just a brief conversation, like what they do, where they live, and which was very insightful as well. And then there were like very popular organizations like ISKCON. There was Brahma Kumaris, Mata Amritanandamayi, and other ones. So starting from the early morning, for the common man, there was different yoga classes, meditation. There was the heads of different institutions giving discourses. There was satsang. And so you could decide like what exactly is your level of spiritual thing, and then accordingly participate in whatever activities you want. But there was everything for everyone, depending upon what you want. Whether you want yoga, whether you want to participate in meditation, pranayam, or whether you want, there were different tantrics as well. There were astrologers. There were Naga sadhus doing their fire rituals. There was chanting and Vedic discourses happening. So there was different things. So wish I had more time to spend there, where I could get myself involved and participate more. Because what we know about Kumbh from the media is that we go there, have a dip, and spend some time and take some pictures with the sadhus and come back, and that we'll spend a day. But in reality, I saw a lot of people who have been there, who were like people like us, who had a day-to-day life, who were in IT, who were in different professions, but had taken a month off and been there. I know at least one or two people from US who I connected there, and who have been there from the start of the Kumbh, and who will be returning once it is done, and they have been there spending quite a bit of time. I think that is where the real, you can get the maximum out of it, because there are different, it's like a religious mela. It's a camp where there are different followers of different spirituality. And I think that is like when you go to a shopping mall, you have a food court and you have like different food stalls there. And this is something similar in terms of the spirituality. You go to one place where you have a different camps organized by different religious and spiritual sects following different. So it makes, to get maximum out of this, it makes more sense to be there at least for a week or more, and then participate in different of these events. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Sounds like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, what he's described is much of what we have seen, maybe even in our local religious temples and stuff like that. Some of the practices that are commonly known, but he also described some of the sects and some of the unique types of saintly beings that come there. Especially the ones that get highlighted the most are the Naga sadhus. And I noticed that, Gokul, that you had shared some videos of these, you coming across and actually conversing with some of the Naga sadhus on Instagram. You had shared some highlights of your time at the Kumbh Mela. So I wonder, is there anything of note or anything that you would say that was really amazing that you learned from either specifically the Naga sadhus or any other saintly beings that you had a chance to converse with?
Yes, the the regular saints which we regularly interact, but something I found different was about the Naga sadhus, because they live a different life. Because other saints whom we interact on a regular basis, they live among us and they relate to us, and we can get a lot of insights from them because we can converse with them, we can meet with them, and they like to interact with us. But on the contrary, Naga sadhus are a bit different because they have absolutely no connection or any interest to interact with people like us. And it's very an exception that they even entertain to talk to us. But we were lucky enough to get some kind of conversation with them. But from what insightful conversation I had with them, they live a completely isolated life away from us, and they live in caves and forest. And after Kumbh, they go and live in this forest and do the rituals. Rituals could be different kind of things, like they do some kind of fire rituals, and they live in caves and do the chanting and be away from. And one thing about them is that they live a very life which is renounced of everything, but also very, very strong, disciplined life, which is not possible for any of us to live. Because one thing you might have seen that they do not dress, they are like naked sadhus, but it is much easier to say because when I went to Prayagraj, the weather was extremely cold. And even for someone like me who has been living in DC, and just before I went to Prayagraj, we had extreme weather in DC, and I was much better equipped to handle the weather there. But still, it was colder, but they handle much extreme weathers without having anything, and they live with bare minimum food. And they once the Kumbh Mela is done, they live away from all of us and just immerse themselves in their spiritual practices. To be honest, I do not know what they get out of those practices or what they really achieve for them, but that's like a higher spiritual thing which is beyond us to understand. And in addition to these Naga sadhus, I met the regular Shankaracharyas and other Swamijis of various mutts and different religious institutions who like were leading a very, very simple life. You could see like today we read about a lot of corporate gurus and who live among the luxuries, and that has been one of the criticisms of some of the religious heads across. But in the Kumbh, I saw like some of these religious heads and some of these saints who were living a very simple life in a camp without much luxury, and they were like just leading a simple life and were ready to meet and converse with us and share their insights, and also doing like various meditation camps and religious discourses. Wish I could spend some more time with those there, because it was very less. I could just meet them and have like very small talks, but that's the very thing of Kumbh, that you be there, spend some time, and would have been better if I had like a more longer conversation with some of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And, really, I mean, it's such a blessing to be in one place where all the different religious Sanatan Dharma following leaders and their followers and the practitioners all gather. It reminds me of the Ramayana in a way that when Rama was banished to exile, he found that to be the greatest blessing, because he said, now I'm going to get out into the forest and meet all these great yogis and great sadhus who I can learn so much from. But we are so fortunate to have these Kumbh Melas where we just have to go there, and all the great ascetics and the sages and saintly people gather in that one location. And you are just able to be in the same, breathe the same air with them. It's incredible. It must be a true blessing. And I wanted to know, because Christian asked earlier about the location, Prayagraj, right? So I believe this is where there's a confluence or coming together of three rivers, three holy rivers called Triveni Sangama. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And is it the Ganga and the Yamuna? And can you tell me? Ganga,
Yeah.
Yamuna, Saraswati.
Yeah. So the main purpose that everyone attends Kumbh is to have a dip in this Triveni Sangam.
Yeah.
And in Prayagraj, we also have separately we can take a bath in Ganga as well as Yamuna. But this Triveni Sangam is a place where these three rivers which merge into one, which we call Triveni Sangam. And that's the place where everyone goes there during this time. And as just for the viewers, we know about Ganga, Yamuna, and the Saraswati is the river which is from the Vedic times, which is currently the mystical river. But these three rivers meet, and that's the very, they say.
Yeah, so I had a question related to this. So we've seen so many people, like you alluded to earlier, take that holy dip and post it on social media and sort of check off the box that, hey, I attended Kumbh Mela, I took the holy dip. And all were doing that, including celebrities, politicians, and all that stuff. It was almost like the FOMO effect, fear of missing out. You know, we have to do this because this seems to be the wave of what's going on. So we saw a lot of people doing that. So can you tell us what is the significance of taking this holy dip in these holy body of water? And also, did you find it to be a little bit of a commercialized aspect to it, that people were not quite there for the true feel and the true essence of what one would go there for? Rather, it was more like, basically just, if you don't understand what I'm saying, like it's just, I went there, I did this, and I'm so cool. So is that like, how did you feel about that?
Yeah. So coming to the point of taking a holy dip, that, as we know in our religion, it can be done during any time, because taking a dip in the Ganga is known for generations now. And specifically why we do during this Kumbh Mela and during at the Triveni Sangam is because it follows the story from the scriptures, the whole thing why the Kumbh Mela is. And that is from the story of the churning of oceans. You might have heard the Samudra Manthan, where good and the evil, the devils and the god fought for the nectar or the amrit which comes. And then 12 days, it is believed that they fought, and a few drops of nectar fell into this Sangam. That's the belief at the 4 locations. Those 4 locations are Prayagraj, Haridwar, Nasik, and which is the 4th one. So one of these 4 locations. Sorry, I missed the name. But
is it Ujjain or
Ujjain? I think so. Yeah,
okay.
It's Ujjain. Yeah. So at these 4 locations, so that is the significance of taking a dip at Prayagraj during this time, because the Kumbh is held at these 4 places depending upon the planetary placement. So there are different placements based on which whether it's held in Haridwar or Prayagraj. This time's Kumbh was in Prayagraj, and there were, you might have seen from the social media and other news that there were different days, including Amavasya and the Makar Sankranti day, and the different days when they call it as Amrit Snan. So it is believed that those particular days during this Kumbh Mela are particularly significance for. But from my point, I thought, and they say it will be washing away the sins and everything. But from my perspective, I thought the more important is that to make a kind of resolution and have a dip. And then they always say that when you take a dip, leave away something at that place and come back as a different person. So that's what is the real essence of washing away our sins. And it's not that we do be corrupt and be a bad person and then take a dip and then it washes away all our sins. But that's not the thing. But the thing is that symbolism, we take a dip and then make a resolution and try to leave away all our evil things and try to resolve to be a better person and then come back with that resolve and be a better person. Coming to the question of commercialization, yes, I completely agree on that, because that's quite natural that when you get a gathering of 400 million people, and in today's world with social media and the media which likes sensationalism and viewership and all that, that most of the people, if not all, visit there without understanding the true purpose of Kumbh, and just as a point to make a check mark. As a maybe I too may be guilty of that at the beginning, but once you go there and see things around with open eyes and see things, you can just be there and do this check mark and come back, or explore and see what's uh, really there to get out of it. And that's what I said. There are a lot of things, good things to get out of this, because it is one place where you have, which is not spoken of much in the media, because everyone talks about the crowd, everyone talks about the tape, everyone talks about the celebrity which is coming, but nobody talks about this very good opportunity where at one place where every sadhus and every religious people and every different sects and what you want, you will get out of it, because based on your religious beliefs and interest, you have everything there and you can spend some time. So I think that is what is missing, and not many will understand. But at the same time, I saw also there were people who have been very seasoned, probably somebody who have been there before and who knew the real essence of Kumbh, who have been there from the beginning and who have been there volunteering a lot. You could see a lot of food distribution. There were a lot of tea stalls which were all voluntary. There were a lot of organizations like ISKCON and many other religious mutts and institutions who were distributing food, and there were a lot of volunteers who were giving their services. So there was also a lot of positive things as well. But it's very common that it also gets a bit of a media commercialized, and you could also see a lot of vendors and 5-star camps and tents which were operated and which were making best use of the opportunity as well, which is also not bad, considering it creates some flow of money and economy, jobs, and all those kind of things will also get promoted. But the very essence of spirituality is also there, and the spirit of volunteering also I could see there. And not to mention, as I already said, about one place where we could seek the true wisdom from whoever visits there. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
I mean, it really seems like a very unique experience that you had, getting the chance to interact with so many enlightened and special people that have boundless wisdom to share with all attendees. So that lends me to ask the question, would you attend again down the line? And also, it's probably not an easy undertaking to go there, considering the scale of it. What should people know before going to the Kumbh Mela?
Yeah. Coming to the point whether I will go again, I think the Kumbh, I don't know whether it will happen at this scale, when it will happen next at the current level of the same scale. The Kumbh happens at this like every 6 years, which is the half Kumbh, and after 12 years. But given a chance, I will surely go. But next time, probably I'll spend some more time, at least a week. Of course, I will go. I would love to go because having learned what is to be done there and what to get out of it, I will surely go next time, spend some more time. And for somebody going there, it's plan in advance is what I would say, because in my case, and for most of the other friends whom I know who are planning, it's all like last minute planning, and it's just go for a day and have a dip and just get a check mark and come back. But I would say like plan in advance, because a lot of these institutions had advertise and put that in their websites and places in advance, 6 months to 3 months in advance, and then plan accordingly. And then even if it is just to visit, I mean, a lot of people cannot or may not have that bandwidth to be there for longer time, just be a week. And even if it's still there till end of this month, and if somebody still plans to go there, it's good to plan in advance. And there is a lot of walking also. One has to be keep in mind that it's a temporary city which is built, and there is not much of help available in terms of transportation. So one has to walk almost a whole day to go around the city. So that's something you have to plan in advance. And then avoid the crowded days. There are certain specific days when there will be a lot of crowd. So watch for those days and then avoid those days. And then preferably for these dip at Triveni Sangam and Ganga Snan and those things, it's preferable to do during a bit off time, like it gets peak during 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. When the crowd really gets picked up. So probably try to very early in the morning, and then after some 6-7 p.m. the crowd will be less. So that should be much easier in terms of going around, spend more time during the bit off time, probably early morning and late in the evening should be a good time to look around. And same thing with the meeting with the sadhus, and just do research well in advance. Who are the institutions who have set up the camps, and then which are the areas or sectors where these camps are located. Plan in advance so that you will save quite a bit of time.
Okay, Gokul, I have the last question for you. What would you say is one memorable moment or experience or lesson or a big takeaway from the Kumbh Mela that will always remain with you?
Yeah, there are quite a bit, as I already said, but one takeaway was I came back as a much more refreshed person, as those bit of ignorance and the fear in me, I would say, is gone. And because after meeting and the experience there, and it just I would say it's beyond description. I because I just went, as Brad said, as a bit of a check mark, but it was really, really inspiring, because I somehow felt it was divine calling, and it was something which I didn't plan, but I went there. I was able to get whatever out of it, visited a few temples, and get myself spiritually charged. And so there were quite a bit of things which I got out of it, and I'm so happy. And also thank you for all letting me share this experience. And
the blessing is
Absolutely.
for us. The pleasure and the blessing is absolutely ours, because we didn't get a chance to go. So, and I don't think we're going to go with the short duration that is left of the Kumbh Mela. So we got a chance to hear from somebody who went. And even for a couple of days, so much you absorbed and were able to share with us. And I really appreciate the point that you made, because the media can absolutely, confuse people by making them think taking the dip will not just wash away their sins, but even punch their ticket for moksha. I've heard that as well. So if that was the case, I would be there first. I'm sure we all would want to get over there, that, the liberation is granted if you take the dip. But I appreciated your point where you said, this is the reason you take the dip is, and being in the presence of all those saintly beings, you actually feel like this is the path I want to get onto. And it's not anything forceful or anything. You're taking baby steps, but you're inspired to get on the path of spirituality and spiritual seeking. And that's what people should understand about this. This isn't about commercialization, or this isn't about promises or guarantees of anything. Nowhere does it say that anything is guaranteed to happen unless you change yourself from within. And that's the main point. And thank you so much for sharing all your experiences and patiently answering all our questions. We truly appreciate your presence and you joining us.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Christian and Vikram. It was good being here, and good luck with your podcast. And I hope I get to listen more of your talks, and looking forward to hearing your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gokul.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gokul. Be well. Keep in touch.
Bye.
Okay, so before we get more into episode 2 here, our Divine Discoveries team is very thankful to everyone who's listened to, followed, subscribed, and shared our first episode. It can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And you can engage with us and find us on social media. We're on Facebook. On Divine Discoveries is our page. And on Instagram, it's divine_discoveries_108. You can also email us. We'd love to hear from you. Our email is divinediscoveries108@gmail.com. So please reach out if you have any questions, comments, etc. Now, before we get into our question and answer segment, I'm going to kick it off by sharing some statistics that I recently read from the Pew Research Center. In December of 2023, Pew published a report entitled Spirituality Among Americans. And obviously, spirituality among Americans is only Americans that they polled, but they researched and queried more than 11,000 Americans. So here are some of the takeaways. Nearly half say they are both religious and spiritual, which is to say they participate in religious institutions as well as have personal spiritual practices or ways of thinking about the world that aren't necessarily based on a formal religious tradition. 7 in 10 American adults consider themselves spiritual, while 22% consider themselves spiritual but not religious. 21% say they are neither spiritual nor religious, and 10% say they are religious but not spiritual. 83% of all U.S. adults believe people have a soul or spirit in addition to their physical body. 81% say there is something spiritual beyond the natural world, even if we cannot see it. 74% say there are some things science cannot possibly explain. And 45% say that they have had a sudden feeling of connection with something that is beyond this world. Okay, so my first question, I'm going to start with you, Vikram, is our first episode, as we all know, was focused on spirituality. So today we're throwing a very big term, a very loaded term into the mix, if you will, religion. A lot of people have very strong opinions, good, bad, indifferent on this. So my question for you is, are these words interchangeable, religion and spirituality, or are they different? And if so, how are they similar? And if they're different, how so?
Well, thank you so much, Christiane. That's definitely a softball question to start off.
Yeah, sorry. We got to get going here, okay?
So are they similar? Are they different? Well, in my personal view, I think that broadly speaking, there is a difference. So for me, I look at religion as something that is clearly defined, and religion provides a set of guidelines, methods that one could follow to find their spirituality or develop their connection to the Almighty. So that to me is religion. Spirituality, which I also mentioned previously in the last episode, is, for me, I think of that as just having a connection with the divine. There's no way to truly define it. It is just a connection. Now, sometimes people can feel that. And sometimes people need a way to find it and to get there. And religion can provide that outlet. So they're similar in the sense that both of them are trying to connect you with the divine and trying to make you into a better person and following a right path throughout life. But they're different in terms of how they are structured. Religion is very structured, and spirituality, I think, is just an emotion that manifests itself in an undefinable way and gives you that connection with the Almighty.
Very good. Very good. Prat, would you like to respond and answer this?
Sure. I think Vikram really set the stage really nicely. I kind of look at religion similarly in that, just to give you an analogy, I think of it like two cliff edges, and there's a bridge in between. The cliff edge that you probably start with is having maybe no belief in anything, or you're not quite sure that you have any connection with any superpower, that there is any superpower or there is a God or anything like that. Religion is really that bridge between perhaps atheism and spiritual seeking. And not to necessarily say that, people who don't believe in anything are atheists. They may not know yet. But I feel like that bridge is where most of the time we spend most of our lives on that bridge, somewhere on that bridge, either closer to spirituality or closer to maybe disbelief. And there are many factors for that. But I think they both are used synonymously quite a bit, but there are stark differences. And from religion, I feel like we get three important things. Whatever we're born into, the religion we're born into, we get to understand the culture, the customs, the traditions. All of this emanates from religion. How our marriages are happening, how ceremonies happen, how worship rituals happen. And that's when we get introduced to that concept of the higher power or God. That is what we have to thank religion for, because it is giving us the culture. It is giving us an introduction to God. It is also then helping us develop our character. Okay, it's at its onset, in its purest form, and when preached in that form, I feel that it really helps one understand that living a life of piety, living an honest, truthful, and loving life is important. It makes you want to appreciate other people. And, there are many quotes from different religious texts that tell us that help us understand that it's not just about us. But of course, as we're getting closer to that feeling, you're advancing past this bridge onto the other cliff edge, which is spiritual seeking. But an interesting thing in, I would say in Sanatan Dharma, from a Sanatan Dharma Vedic perspective, is that there are four, they're called the Purusharthas. So it is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These are the four guidance goals that religion also introduces us to. But of course, it all depends on how religion has been introduced to you and how you're influenced by it.
Okay, great. So my next question for you then, Prat, is for those who consider themselves to be religious, what do you think is the goal or the end game for such individuals? And then I would ask the same question for those who consider themselves to be spiritual. What do you think is the goal, the end game for such people? Overall, obviously this is a big question, but in your opinion.
Sure. So like I said, the four guiding goals are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And I'm going to just briefly define each one. So Dharma is a very loaded word, and it has many different meanings. It depends on the context in which we're using it. But in this sense, it's like living a righteous life like I said, a life of piety and wishing well upon others, and also taking care of your responsibilities, all your material responsibilities for your relatives and all that, and your friends, being there to help people. Artha, which means the means by which we survive, right? How do you get through a material existence? We need money. We need, in order to gain money, we need to educate ourselves and so on and so forth. So artha is that path by which we gain the means to be able to survive in this world and live a good life, good material life. Kama is desires. The desires that we have that are within reason. And that's the context that I want to bring forth, is that when we talk about these four things, especially the first three, dharma is considered the superior one, because there are many ways that we can earn money. There are many ways that types of desires that we can harbor. But when you bring dharma into the picture, it sort of brings goodness into the methods by which we earn our money or the desires that we harbor. So we're not going to try to hurt somebody else or step on somebody else to get the means that we need to survive. We're not trying to hurt anybody else. So that's why dharma is considered, of the top three, of the first three, the most important one. And the one that's at the end is probably the most important purpose of human life, but is often not even introduced, not even spoken about much. Or if it's spoken about like it's some fantasy, or it's something that, moksha, if we're ever lucky to be, it's never given the spotlight. And I feel like that's the reason why it's often overlooked or forgotten about. And as we spoke about moksha in the previous episode, it is ultimately the liberation or the release from our rebirth and death cycle. So ultimately, in this human form is how we can approach that possibility. And it's often, unfortunately, the one that, like I said, that most people don't think about. And even once they know that that's a possibility or that is the goal, many a time we don't think about it. So a religious person's goals, I would say, in life is, most often just to be a good human being and try to worship God in whatever ritualistic ways through pujas. And we buy a house, we have a puja for that. We buy a car, there's a car puja. There's where our children are born, for them there's a naming ceremony, or wedding ceremonies. And when you first feed your child solids, there's a ceremony for that. So there are a lot of rituals that we understand come from the Vedas, and they have their significance. But I think somewhere that's all a religious person is sort of surrounding himself with is, I just want to be in good standing with God. I will try my best to be a good human being, and just live by those tenets. But they don't necessarily go beyond that. I would say a spiritual person's goal is to ultimately try to realize the aspect of themselves that is beyond religion, or beyond what these barriers or these structures of religion don't necessarily highlight too much to us. There is something higher, and we spoke about that. So when we know that there is something higher, we're very focused on wanting to get on this path and try to use these practices in search of our own truth. What is the truth? Who are we? Why are we here? These kind of contemplative questions is what we ponder on, and then we do these practices and these rituals are not something that a spiritual person wouldn't do necessarily, but their mindset is different. So essentially the goal would be different. The goal is moksha, or liberation, or being one with God and being one with everything in this world. So that's how I would differentiate the goals of a religious person versus a spiritual person.
Okay, very interesting, Prat. All right, Vikram, I'm going to turn to you now. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I think, a spiritual person is one who simply is just seeking inner peace, inner peace, inner peace through connection with the divine. They may just believe that however they have that bond and that connection works for them, and that is what propels that. For a religious person, I think based on my earlier definition of what I view religion to be, I think religion can really guide a person to find how they want to do it. I think, religion is always open to interpretation. This is my personal view. I think religion is always open to interpretation. There's, I guess, strict interpretation and there's liberal interpretation, and both can work as long as they help one achieve that end goal of one, being a good person, living a life of strong morals and being pious, and then third, never forgetting that there is a higher power, and that is the supreme being. So I think that both have the same end goal. One is just defined a lot more clearly than the other.
Okay, very good, very good. So Vikram, are there any potential pitfalls or risks that you see to living such lives, either religious life or spiritual life?
No, broadly, I don't think there's any risk. I think, just as long as when you're following either path, just as long as you do it with humility, do it with respect for everyone and love for everybody, and just focusing on peace and bliss and strong morals, I think that if you believe in that, there's no pitfalls. But at the same time, we are all human, so we also have to be discerning on how we absorb certain things and take certain things. I'll give an example of this. In Hinduism, there's a belief, I don't know how you want to describe it, but when you think about the soul is considered as being a piece, I guess you can say a piece of God, right? Now, technically, someone could say that, oh, I'm a soul, so I'm a piece of God, so therefore that makes me God, which is not exactly what it is, right? But as a human being, and human beings have a tendency to try to want to feel superior. If they take that literally, I mean, there can be serious consequences to doing that. And actually, I was reading about Swami Prabhupada Ji, founder of ISKCON, and when he came to the US, he did deal with something like that. When he was talking about the various messages of Krishna consciousness, he did encounter people that didn't interpret this correctly, and they're like, "Oh yes, we're all God. That's great," but that's not exactly what that is. So it really just comes down to just knowing that spirituality is a connection with a higher power and living life with good morals, living life with love, and if you keep that in mind, those simple things, it's actually as simple to just do that. No pitfalls.
Pratt, how about you? What do you think?
I agree and sort of see things a little differently than Vikram here, because where I agree is, he said in the mindset, if you have that mindset that you're doing this with humility, you're doing this with love in your heart and all these things, and honesty and humility, all of these things are exactly what we should have if we want to be on the spiritual path. And that's what develops when you're on the spiritual path. But unfortunately, when it comes to religion and how people engage in religious practices and how their mindset sometimes forms into a little bit of a dogmatic way of thinking, the pitfall or the risk is really losing yourself or losing your individuality to become part of a community, to become part of something obsessively, where it takes away the true essence and the spirit of what is being taught in the Holy Scriptures. And a lot of that, I know is based on, leadership and all those things, and maybe even how your family perceives these things. It all rubs off on us. It influences us. And sometimes we just feel like we have to be part of the band, part of the group. So I would say the pitfalls are somewhere, being like groupism, or even like thinking that my religion is better, or my God, or my form of God is better than yours. And this is where you start making all these differences between what you believe in and what other people believe in. And unfortunately, that often is going to lead somebody to experiencing misery. And that's because you're just seeing it through your own colored glasses. And, I would say there are a couple of quotes that I have from the Bhagavatam that I'd like to read with context to this. So the Bhagavad Purana is one of the greatest texts from the 18 Puranas that we have. And in Canto 4, Chapter 11, Verse 13, it says, "The Lord is very satisfied with his devotee when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality." So most people who are part of a religious organization that is very structured and very rigid, they may welcome somebody from outside, but many a time they may question that person, like, why do you believe this? Why do you? And they often make that person feel guilty of what they believed in, or maybe even sorry that they even stepped in, or maybe they're like, hey, they're brainwashing that person into thinking that whatever they believed in before is not valid or not worthwhile. So there's all this, those are the kinds of risks that I'm talking about. And also, I would say somewhere within a religious person, there's ego development. Like, oh, look at how much I'm practicing. Look at how many pujas I'm doing. This other person who's within my community even is not following it or not practicing it to that level. So you start to become judgmental somewhere also. So these are the things to watch out from, because it's fine if you want to do whatever practice you want to do. It's fine whichever religion you want to follow. But if you're not going to be respectful towards the other ones, or you feel like you're separated and you're in your class of your own or something like that, that's where the danger lies. So we have to really watch out for the ego growing through religious influences. And I would also say one more quote I have from the Bhagavatam is from Canto 11, Chapter 2, Verse 47. "A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple or church, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta." That means a very practical devotee, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. So these are some things to keep in mind. And I think even within spirituality, one who can be on the spiritual path can also take steps back when their ego begins to grow. And they feel like, oh, look at what I'm doing. I'm changing people's lives. I'm practicing this, and I'm uplifting myself as well as other people. So as soon as you start thinking that, oh, what I'm doing is helping other people, you start to gain a little bit of the ego and the selfishness from that, and you can fall from this. So no matter which path you get on, try to follow the humble way. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Prat. And I'm just going to interject based on something in my tradition that what you were just speaking about has sort of triggered. In the Talmud, which is a collection of Jewish writings on the law and the tradition, there is a quote in there that says that kindness is the highest form of wisdom. And I always think about that and turn back to that because I've seen a lot of religious figures and authorities and leaders who might be extremely knowledgeable and they might have high positions of authority in the community and garner a lot of respect. But when I see them not being kind or not being humble, I notice that and I pay attention to it, and it's unfortunate. So thank you for that. And now I think this is a really good segue, like a very natural segue to get into the topic of organized religion. And I have multiple questions within this question. Basically, what is your opinion on organized religion? So I think maybe I'll just kind of throw it all out there in one big bolus. And Prat, I guess I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Vikram, and you can kind of answer what you would like to within my questioning, of course. But basically, organized religion, what do you think about it? Is it a force for good or is it a force for evil in the world? Because you hear a lot of debates about this on both sides. And then follow up to that would be, do you think religion unifies or divides people? And another question, another sort of follow-up that comes out of this is it's often said that religion can be fear-based. So what is your opinion on this statement?
Yeah, I think both are true. When you're asking, is it a good force or an evil force for the world? I think both can be true. It all depends on where you're going to gain your knowledge and what type of leaders are in place at these churches or these temples or these mosques or wherever you go to worship. What type of message is being given to you? Is it just our group here, our sect, that's the one to follow to get to the promised land? It all depends on how the leadership is and how you take it in. Because we as individuals have our own mind, right? We have our own decision-making abilities. We shouldn't give those away. And I feel like when we do that, you're basically going along with whatever is being taught to you. So we should think for ourselves and say, is this in tune with me? Is this striking a chord with me within the way this is being taught? And fear-based, absolutely. I mean, there are many people in religious leadership positions who are using the scriptures, manipulating the message, not really delivering the right message that people should hear. And often it's because they have their own, some sort of an agenda type of thing. So I feel like, religion, I think at its core, they all are meant to unify. I think they all are meant to unify, but perhaps the way that it's largely practiced in today's times that we're living in, I feel like it has become very divisive. There's a lot of exclusivity, and unfortunately, that is leading a lot of people to getting away from it, or maybe there's, they just lose faith, and a lot of this is faith-based, right? Faith has to be strong. So if you believe in God, that's because you have faith in God. But obviously, from a spiritual perspective, you're trying to convert that faith into experience and basically have a conviction that this is just not blind faith. But Sanatana Dharma, or the Vedic tradition, or Hinduism as we call it, has never been about blind faith. It's always said question everything. Try to seek those answers. Don't just follow whatever you're told. Research it yourself. So is it wise for one to leave their brain at home? Absolutely not. Always keep it with you, and I would say do your own research and try things for yourself and see how it works. Yeah. So unfortunately, religion means good, and the purpose of it is good. But unfortunately, I think it's definitely been twisted and toyed with over time.
Yes, Vikram, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, and actually adding on to the points that Pratt was sharing earlier, which actually segue nicely to this particular segment. So, I think religion is a force for good in the world. So religion itself, because it's helping an individual to try to find their spiritual connections and trying to help them lead a good life. So in that sense, I think religion is a force of good. But as Pratt was also alluding to, is that when one looks at religion, they need to trust themselves, because religion is very vast and it's very deep, and it can be understood in many ways. And so one needs to channel deep within themselves to look at what the things are and imbibe what they feel would work for them to establish their spiritual connection. So I think the point that Pratt made about not blindly trusting anything is a really, really important one, because one has to keep in mind that every individual takes from religion what resonates with them. So what resonates with somebody and how they may view the world might be a different worldview than what you have, even within the same faith. So I think that that's a really important point. And that is a really important word as well. We're talking about religion and we're talking about spirituality. And then there's this third word, which is faith. Now, what is faith? Faith is a very strong belief in something. So when we talk about religion and spirituality collectively, I would say that is faith. Religion plus spirituality equals faith. Strong belief. The key word is belief, meaning that there's many different ways that can get to one outcome. So just like when we have normal conversations about anything, we may have a point of view about something, someone else may have a point of view about something, and each point of view in its own way is has its ground and it's correct, and we have to respect all of that. So that's how faith is. The end goal is the same, and there's different ways to getting there. It's very individual, and so we have to have that respect for it all. So, I definitely think that religion has the power to unify. That's undoubtedly true. I think it can definitely bring people together. And as far as, a point about whether it's, fear-based or not, it really shouldn't be. Religion, spirituality, faith, it's all about love. It's all about peace. It's all about friendship. It's all about kinship. So that fear-based to me comes across as fear of God, right? I personally do not believe in fear of God. I don't believe that God is there to scare anybody. We are God's children, so to speak. God is there only to love, to guide, and help provide life lessons when we lose ourselves. So there's no fear in that. Very much like a parent. I mean, sure, a parent might get mad from time to time, but at the end of the day, you love your parents, and that's the same way I view God. So that's my long take on this.
Okay, have you read the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament? Because the God of the Hebrew Bible can be very angry and very vindictive. So I'm just going to throw that in there. Good for you if you're not afraid. personally, I'm a little afraid of God. I'm actually a lot afraid of God, but I think it's a good thing because I think it keeps me on my best behavior. Because when I'm thinking about doing something that's a little questionable, I always tell myself, God is watching. Christiane, Chaya, God is watching you. Like, do the right thing, do the right thing. So, okay, just wanted to interject with that. That yes, I do think it can be fear-based, but I don't think that's a bad thing, in my opinion. So it can be channeled for good. But
Absolutely,
absolutely,
because it's all trying to make us just be good people and do the right thing. The result is meant to be only positive.
absolutely. And God is all loving and is love at the same time. So absolutely. Okay, so are we ready to pivot to religious figures and leaders? Like, what are our opinions about our leaders? And does it ever seem as if our certain leaders are being treated differently or better or even godly? And what are your thoughts on this issue? Vikram, do you want to start off?
Sure. So again, I will preface this by saying these are my personal views. So I think that there's two kinds of leaders. There is one kind of leader which has all the knowledge, has all the wisdom, imparts it to those who needs it, doesn't expect any credit for imparting that knowledge. It's coming simply from a place of, this has benefited me and it's going to benefit you if you know this, if you want to know it. And they live kind of under the radar, and their goal is just to impart that. Our speaker earlier was also alluding to this, where sometimes there is a type of leadership where the wisdom is there, but there's a lot of things around that. Maybe a lot of hype, maybe a lot of fanfare, and I mean, that's fine. That's fine. But I've always viewed personally a true spiritual leader to be one that is very under the radar and is just focused on giving the wisdom. I haven't always understood kind of glitzy, large-scale displays of spirituality, if that makes sense. I feel somewhere there the hugeness of it, of that, having that kind of following is more out there than what the actual messaging is. And also going back to Pratt's earlier point about groupthink, sometimes also, one has to be very discerning, because there have been things that I've read about, heard about, where if there is a certain following around certain leaders, people tend to worship those leaders also. Sometimes to the point where it's only worshiping those leaders. And for me personally, who is just looking for a connection to God, that makes me a little nervous, because I feel that someone who's a true spiritual leader just wants to give the wisdom and have nothing in return. They might be very much enlightened and they have all of that, but they don't want to be the godly figure. They just want to be someone who shares what they know. But when one, as a human being, accepts that kind of worship for themselves, I think that's a little bit of a concern. So that's my broad-based view on this.
Pratt, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think I largely agree with Vikram on this. What he said about there being a differentiation between the types of religious, I would actually say religious leader versus a spiritual leader. There is a difference there. Religious leaders can very much do this as a business. We have priests in temples that they know all the Vedic mantras and all the, daily ritualistic mantras that they do pujas with. But we can't expect them to be enlightened. They're just doing it for their own livelihood, and that's respectable, no issue there. But when you start when you yourself are not knowledgeable about what your holy scriptures say, then it's very likely that if somebody just sounds cool, has a few good punchlines, does some magic tricks, pulling an apple out of thin air and things like that, you're going to be mesmerized. And there's a lot of different types of, there are two words that I'd like to bring forward from the Sanskrit language. One is called siddhi, and the other one is called siddha. Okay? They're very, very close, but just the vowel on the end is different. So siddhi means one who is mystical, on a mystical yogic path of the, and gains, siddhis are mystical powers. Okay? And you can get these mystical powers if you have done enough practice on the spiritual path. But that's why I said some people falter. Some of these leaders falter from that path because what they start doing is, hey, I have the ability to do this now. And I have these magical, mystical powers that I can use for business purposes. Okay? And then there's the other type that Vikram mentioned, where the actual meaning of guru is the one who dispels ignorance and darkness within you. And most of the time, that's what is hindering us from realizing who we are. Those layers of ignorance that are upon us have to be removed. And the guru, the true guru, the spiritual guru, who has already seen that light, who has already been in touch with the divine, the enlightened one, because many people we believe are enlightened, they probably aren't. And I think in large part, you self-educating and just using common sense to see, is this leader preaching like he's preaching for others? Or is he preaching like he's preaching for himself? Is there some self-praise going on? Is there an entitlement that I need to be taken from one place to another in a helicopter or in a Rolls Royce? Or something like that. There's some gurus that believe that, and that's what they ride in, And some people are like, hey, whatever it is, if it's a beaten up Honda Civic, I'll go in that. It doesn't matter. So there's a clear division here between these two, and we need to understand that. And that's why I urge people to educate themselves by reading the scriptures first, trying to understand. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly defines what a man of equipoise, what a man of enlightenment is like. Because Arjuna asked that question to him, what is the perfect person like? And and that is to give us that wisdom that, hey, don't think anybody that you just come across is that man of perfection. Please try to be able to discriminate based on the teachings that I'm giving you. So lack of education, lack of awareness, self-awareness, and just being carried away with, people giving you some sort of feeling that, I know everything there is to know. That's not the mark of a true guru. Anybody who praises themselves, right there is a red flag, right there. And many a time I have heard such gurus speak highly about themselves and even declare themselves an avatar. Whereas any avatar that I know of as a true avatar has never actually said that. And even Krishna had to be pushed to say he is God by Arjuna when he surrendered during the Bhagavad Gita. When he was saying, Krishna, I don't know what my duty is right now. Please be my charioteer, not just for the physical chariot, but of what my duty is. Please show it to me. That's when Krishna reveals himself. I know through his actions in his leelas, he has pretty much shown that he's God, but he never said that. This is where that one-on-one conversation is when he said, in this intimate moment with you as my disciple who has surrendered to me, I'm going to give you the knowledge that I am all supreme, all powerful, and that was so that he can understand, he can, get some sense kicked back into him. But there are a couple of quotes from the Bhagavad Gita with regards to a guru that I'd like to read, because I don't want anybody to believe that gurus are all fake, or that they're not worth following, or there's no point seeking one out. Or I don't want anybody to necessarily think that it's, just follow anybody that you first come across just because our wisdom says seek out a guru. But here's what Krishna has to say to Arjuna in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 34 and 35. Learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Krishna is saying this now. Learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him with reverence and render service unto him. Such an enlightened saint can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. 35. Following this path and having achieved enlightenment from a guru, O Arjuna, you will no longer fall into delusion. In the light of that knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but parts of the Supreme and are within me, says the Blessed Lord. So when we think of it that way, he's giving importance to the guru figure. He's even saying serve that guru. Okay? So that's the differentiation we have to make, is even in our opening prayer, we first pray to the guru. May that guru principle give us the ability to understand this wisdom so we can speak clearly and speak sensibly. So Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So right there in that shloka, it says Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the Holy Trinity that the Hindus believe in, they all have empowered and essentially put their powers into this being and said, you go do our mission and uplift the souls who are bewildered in this world. So we see the importance of serving a guru once you understand that guru has nothing but good intentions for you and everybody around you. He sees the oneness in everybody. He sees the divine in everybody. He sees the unity in diversity. And not just that, one more thing I remembered was in a very famous song that we sing after all the pujas is an Aarti song, right? It's called Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. And in that, there are many verses. So the one verse that I'd like to allude to, in fact, if you guys are okay with it, I'll just sing it. So, Vishaya vikar mitao, Paap haro deva, Swami paap haro deva, Shraddha bhakti badhao, Shraddha prem badhao, Santan ki seva, Om Jai Jagdish Hare. So what that means is get rid of all the negativity, all the words, all the conversations that bring us negativity. Get rid of that kind of company. Surround yourself with saintly people. Serve them. If you believe they have truly your interest at heart and nothing for themselves, then serve them with all your heart. That's the way that the true wisdom and prosperity will come upon you. So with that,
and Prat, that actually reminds me also of this scene from, you might remember this scene from Krishna, the TV series, when after Sri Krishna has killed Kans, he's waiting with Balaram because Nand Baba's about to come to say goodbye to him. So Nand Baba comes and he says that, some people say that you are God. So tell me the truth. Are you God? And he says, yes, I am also God. So he said, also God? What does that mean? And this goes back to that thing I was discussing earlier, where he says that in every one of us, there's a piece of the soul which belongs to God, and that's simply what I am. When in fact, he really was God, but he didn't say that he was. He also mentioned himself as being human, just like any of us. So that's a really important takeaway right there, I think.
very fascinating, guys. Very beautiful. Very informative. And thank you, Pratt, for singing. That was such a pleasant surprise. We might need to make that more of a regular practice here on Divine Discoveries.
No, I don't think so. We're here to talk.
Okay.
If a opportunity happens to be there, then maybe. But yeah, it'll be very rare. But thank you so much.
Okay, fair enough. Yes. All right. So let me ask another question. I think I'm with Pratt here again, and then we'll hand it over to you, Vikram. I'm going to ask about religious doctrine. So religious doctrines, tenets, principles. What could be classified as dogma? Is this helpful to you, or does it get in the way of your spiritual path?
Yeah, I mean, I think the religious doctrines or tenets, if they're aligned with the Holy Scriptures, then I think there's no problem. And even the way that they would be taught in that sense would be, doing justice to what the Scriptures want us to understand and how they want us to conduct ourselves and how they want us to live. What is the prescribed way? But if those deviate from what the Scriptures say, then I think they can definitely inflict harm on one's psyche, or definitely it brainwashes them into thinking something different than what is meant for them to think. So I would say it really depends, and that's why I kind of go back to what I said earlier. Try to educate yourselves with the holy books that were written a long, long time ago, ancient wisdom that is still very relevant today. And they were written for guidance, to be a guide, to be a roadmap for us to follow today and at any point in time, I would say. So try your best to understand this. Listen to a lot of different people and see if there are common interpretations, or if one thinks completely different than somebody else, and see what type of essence really organically makes sense to you. And then if it touches your heart, then by all means follow it. But if somewhere within you're not seeing that connection, then don't go following something like that because of any sort of pressure. And the same thing, when we were talking about the religious leaders, if anybody's saying follow me, or if anybody's saying, hey, this is the light you've been waiting for, this is where you've been wanting to be all your life, and now you finally met me, or that kind of thing, like, hey, come join the group. You got to watch out for things like that. And if it's not something that you connect with instantly, and believe you me, I think, having spoken to so many disciples of Guruji, of my grandfather, many of them have seen something and connected with him right away. And that's the point where they decided, this is my mission in life. I'm going to follow Guruji. He never imposed anything on them. And similarly, there are many such genuine gurus out there who will never tell you to follow them. And I think even Vikram alluded to something like that they're not sitting there with expectations and trying to market themselves. They have a storehouse of wisdom, and they believe in the path that God has already outlined for them. And they're just traveling on that path selflessly. And whoever comes to them and connects with them, they're happy to preach to them. So similarly, so that's why I say, these tenets and these religious doctrines have to really fall in line with what the holy ancient scriptures are trying to tell us.
Vikram, would you like to elaborate on this?
Sure. I agree with everything that Pratt said. I think for me personally, I'm a selective person when it comes to religious doctrine. So, my personal belief is that, there's there are a lot of rituals and a lot of practices since I am a believer in Hinduism, and every faith has this, that there's certain practices and certain things, certain methods of worship and stuff like that. So even Hinduism, there's a lot of that also. But I believe that, if I am looking to be spiritual and looking to have that connection, I don't necessarily need to do those rituals and things to the letter. There are certain things that I feel gives me great joy in doing it as I'm establishing that connection, and I partake in that, but I don't necessarily believe in every doctrine or every principle or everything that's part of what I follow. So I take what I believe in, and that's what I apply. And actually, a lot of what I apply isn't even necessarily from rituals and stuff. It's more from the stories and the lessons that come from those stories and the things that have touched me. I one story from Krishna, and I think of that story and it just brings tears to my eyes. But it's this type of story that is what drives me as opposed to any particular practices. But basically, there's a poor fruit seller woman who was in the village of where Lord Krishna lived as a child. And she was trying to sell her fruits, and she walked all day and no one bought it. So she got exhausted and she came across this huge home, which is where Lord Krishna lived with his foster parents. And, she called out for someone to come buy the fruits, and no one came. And she sat down and she was exhausted, and she prayed to God and said that, I've been walking all day. No one has brought these fruits. Looks like I'm just meant to be, hungry today and not earn anything. Whatever whatever your will is, she says to God. And at that moment, little Lord Krishna comes out and he asks the lady, "Oh, you have all these fruits. Are they sweet?" And she says, "Yeah. Would you like to buy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she says, "How many?" And he says, "Well, how much are you going to give me?" And she says, "Well, whatever amount of money you give me, I'll give you that much fruit in proportion." And he says, "Money? I don't have any money. Um, what is that?" So the lady says, "Well, look, money is when you get something, you give money in exchange for something, and that's what it is." And he says, "Fruit seller lady, what is this?" He's like, "My mother gives me all this butter, and she never asked me for any money. And all these ladies, they never asked me for anything. They just asked me to give them like a little kiss on the cheek or a hug, and you know, uh, they just don't ask me for this money thing. So if I give you a hug, is that going to be enough to get the fruit?" And the woman just melted, and she's like, "You're so innocent." She's like, "Even if this was possible, I can't take a hug from you." He says, "Why?" She says, "Well, I'm a lower caste woman, someone that's higher caste like you. How can you even touch me?" And he says, "Like this." And he goes and he gives her a hug. And then she completely, she just feels something inside of her. And she's just like, "You're just some sort of magician, that you're just making me feel so amazing." And she says, "I'll give you all the fruits." And he's like, "Don't worry, I have a few grains of rice. I can give you that if that helps." And she said, "Okay." So when he walks away, she just says, "What you have given me, that respect, that's more than anything I can ask for in a lifetime." Meanwhile, little Lord Krishna goes and he grabs a huge handful of rice and he's trying to bring it, but as he's bringing it, it keeps falling through his hands. And by the time he gets to the lady, there's literally like 4 or 5 grains left. And she's like, "This is adorable." And she's like, "I've made the biggest sale today." And then she puts those 4 or 5 grains in her little basket and she goes home. She gets home and she notices that her basket is feeling very, very heavy. And she's like, "Huh?" She puts it down, she opens it, and there's jewels, there's money, there's all this stuff. And then she realizes that was some divine being. But for me, the point here, when there's the conversation about money and he's like, I don't know what that is. I just know what love is. And when he hugs her and she says, what you have given me is more than what I could have asked for in a lifetime, that to me, that understanding and just that emotion there, that's what I'm talking about as a guiding force. Just that humanity. Truth be told, I would say humanity is the supreme religion, actually. So anyway, I know that was a long story, but that's just an example of the types of things that I follow.
That was beautiful, Vikram.
Very touching. Thank you for that, Vikram. Okay, I'm going to ask you another question here, Vikram. Most religions have rules that adherents are supposed to follow. Does spirituality have any rules? And if so, what are they? And then there's sort of a follow-up to that question, which is that religion seems to be community-based. Do you need a community for spiritual practice?
So on the first point, are there rules to spirituality? I personally don't think there are, because I've often said that because it's the connection with the divine, there's no rules there. There's only emotion. There's only devotion, or there's only bhakti. That's it. So I think to be a spiritual person, you just need that. You just need bhakti. You just need devotion. There's no way to even define what that is. And to each person, it's very individual, I believe. So again, I think religious doctrines and things can help guide you. But at the end of the day, the spirituality is just what is within you as a human being. And I'm sorry, repeat, Christian, the second question you had?
Religion seems to be community-based. Do you need a community for spiritual practice?
Me personally, I don't, but I like being in a community sometimes. That is kind of listening to the same thing, like satsangs, Pratt knows, where there's gatherings and there's stories and, everyone is collectively, it's like this is a very weird example, but I'm trying to simplify it. When you go to watch a movie in the movie theater, if you watch a comedy or you watch a horror or you're in a room collectively with other people and everyone's having their own individual experience, but you kind of appreciate being in this collective environment where you're reacting the same way. And I think that sometimes in spirituality, you need that, you need that sense of kinship and connection. And when you're going to listen to stories of the Almighty and the beautiful things the Almighty has done, that itself is a beautiful thing. So I think sometimes it's nice to experience that. I don't always need it, but I like to experience it sometimes.
Great, Pratt. What are your thoughts on this?
I also agree. I don't think spirituality has any rules other than whatever you want to follow, whatever your inner heart says is the right thing for you to do. That's what you go by. And also, if you do have a spiritual guru that you have dedicated yourself to or surrendered yourself to, of course, as long as like I said, as long as you are convinced that it's not about them, it's about you and other people in the boat with you, they have your best interest at heart, then whatever instruction they give you, whatever rules they give you, whatever mantra they give you will be the best for you, because that's what they know, you in and out. They know everything there is to know about you, past, present, and even future. So because they're empowered by God to be able to do that. So that's the reason why I believe If you have a guru or a spiritual master, then certainly go by whatever they recommend for you. Otherwise, I would say there's no stringent rules at all. You can practice as you like. And in terms of community, I think it can be very, very helpful, especially at the onset. And in certain activities, it's really nice to have, like Vikram said. I mean, when you're doing bhajan kirtan or even a great talk, or something like that, it's nice to have that collective group of seekers that are somewhere in their journey as you are in yours. And everybody's journey is at a different point, and that's okay, but everybody's trying to get to the same end goal, and that's the key. So having that sense of community is really wonderful. If you can have that within your significant other or somebody within your family, that's great. But at the end of the day, it's really your individual journey. And everybody comes themselves alone and goes alone. So where you go is by your own choices and by your own doing. So while the community is really nice to help you stay on the path, and it's motivating, but if there's any negativity that comes out of that, or any sense of competition or something like that, then it may be best avoided. Maybe there's some other gathering or some other group that you can join. So I'm not saying there's any issues with community, but I think you should pick your community wisely.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for this fascinating Q&A session. And now we're going to turn to the holidays. So we're in the month of February, and I know there are many holidays that we want to highlight. I'll start by talking about one that the Jewish world just celebrated a few days ago. Our holidays go from sunset to sunset, basically. So they start in the evening and they go to the following evening. So February 12th and 13th, there was a kind of a little known holiday, I would say, but I think it's a very profound one. It's one of my favorites. It's called Tu B'Shvat, which literally means the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Shavat. And it is known as a new year or a birthday for trees. So we literally celebrate a birthday for all of the trees of the world. And it's an ancient holiday, as all of our holidays in Judaism are ancient. We're an ancient faith, ancient tradition. And it was started in the era where there were Jewish farmers living in the Holy Land. And it's written in Leviticus, which is one of the books of our Torah, our holy book. And there's 5 books in our Torah. And it is written in Leviticus that one may not eat from any tree that is less than 3 years old. So a tree has to be at least 3 years old before you can eat its fruit. So the ancient Israelite farmers needed to figure out how old the trees are, because they needed to know which fruit they could and could not eat. So the rabbis made the 15th day of Shavat as a general birthday for all trees, regardless of when they were actually planted. And the date was chosen because it falls after midwinter, and agriculturally, it was considered a good time to plant trees. Now, according to Kabbalists, which Kabbalah in the most general, broad term definition could be considered Jewish mysticism. According to the Kabbalists, every physical object or being on this earth, including human beings, hides within them a spark of the divine. And just like fruits and nuts have seeds that can bring about growth and new life, human beings can release our sparks of divinity through our actions. So it remains a tradition on this day, on Tu B'Shvat, to eat certain fruits that are native to the Holy Land, such as pomegranate, grapes, dates, figs, olives, wheats, and barley. Those are what's called the 7 species. Now, in the modern era, this holiday has become somewhat of a Jewish Earth Day, if you will, as it serves as it's a good reminder, right, for human beings that we have a tremendous responsibility here to be good stewards over the earth and all of God's creations. So many observe the holiday by engaging in some type of ecological activism. So that's pretty much a nice little summary of Tu B'Shvat, in case if you were wondering, because I know I was posting, celebrating, the birthday for the trees. So that was our February holiday. And Prat, I know you have some that you would like to discuss.
Sure. Thank you so much for bringing that to our awareness. And it's totally, connects a parallel with how Sanatana Dharma feels as well. All of nature is what we should be respecting. There's a soul within every living being or every living, breathing, creature. So trees are what we absolutely need. So that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to know that. So following along, February 2nd, Vasant Panchami is usually celebrated with Saraswati Puja. It's a festival that marks the preparation for the arrival of spring. The festival is celebrated in Indian religions or Indian regions in different ways, depending on whichever region one comes from. On February 4th, it was Narmada Jayanti. So we spoke about the confluence at the Triveni Sangama of the Ganga, Jamuna, and Saraswati. So similarly, there's a shloka that says, Gange cha Yamune chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalesmin Sannithim Kuru. So all the holy rivers that we believe in that have the essence of God, goddess, is Narmada is one of them. And it's a Hindu festival that celebrates the birth of the Narmada River. It's celebrated annually on the 7th day of the waxing moon in the Magha month of the Hindu lunar calendar. On February 5th, the very next day, was Bhishma Ashtami, and it honors the death or the day that Bhishma, one of the prominent characters of the Mahabharata, left his body that day after the battle of the Mahabharata concluded. So then there is on February 12th, Guru Ravidas Jayanti, which is celebrated in Punjab. He's revered due to his spirituality and works against casteism, like the other 10 Sikh gurus. He was a spiritual man. On this day, his followers bathe in the holy rivers. Then they take inspiration from Guru Ravidas Ji by remembering the great events and miracles related to his life. His devotees go to the place of his birth and celebrate his birthday on this day. So then on the 18th of February, we have Yashoda Jayanti. Yashoda was the foster mother or the second mother of Lord Krishna. And Shabari Jayanti is on February 20th. And Shabari is a very old woman, saintly woman, who was anticipating the arrival of Lord Rama. And while he was on his journey to find his wife Sita, who had been abducted by the demon Ravana, he was told to go in this direction and he would meet this great devotee of his. And the greatness of that devotee is very unique. She plucked fruits, berries for Lord Rama. And she didn't just simply pluck them and give it to him. She plucked them, tasted them to see which ones are sweet and which ones are bitter, and then gave it to Lord Rama to partake. And when Lord Rama ate that, he said, "This is more satisfying than any royal meal I will ever have." So that's a great learning lesson for us from Mata Shabri. And then on the 23rd, there's Maharishi Dayanand Saraswati Jayanti. He was a great Hindu philosopher, social leader, and founder of the Arya Samaj, a reform movement of Hinduism. He was a sannyasi or an ascetic from boyhood and a scholar. He believed in the infallible authority of the Vedas. Dayanand advocated the doctrines of karma and reincarnation. He emphasized the Vedic ideals of brahmacharya, including celibacy and devotion to God. Among his contributions were his opposition to untouchability, meaning the caste where we consider somebody untouchable. He opposed that and promoted the equal rights for women. And his commentary on the Vedas from Vedic Sanskrit was from Vedic Sanskrit, and as well as it's been translated in Hindi. And the last one I have is going to be celebrated on February 26th, Mahashivratri, which is the big one for this month. And we hopefully will plan to do a Shiva special episode coming up in a couple of weeks. So we thought we would do a shorter episode in glorification of Lord Shiva and what he stands for. But this is a day we celebrate to celebrate the marriage anniversary of Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati, which their union is often referred to as Shiva Shakti or Ardhanarishwara. So there's God as Shiva, and then his female companion is his energy. So one is incomplete without the other. It is also celebrated as the day when Lord Shiva drank the poison, which emanated from the famous churning of the ocean story, which Gokul had touched on earlier. Because this poison had emanated, just like the nectar had come out of the ocean, a pot of the poison had also come out. And if this poison was allowed to just float, it would eventually basically flow into the world, and it would probably destroy all of humanity and all of life. So in order to avoid that to happen, Lord Shiva came forward and said, I will drink this poison. I will save all of creation from dying. So that is the greatness of Lord Shiva, among many other things. So this day is used by many who aspire for spiritual upliftment and stay awake late at night worshipping Lord Shiva via puja rituals, singing his holy kirtan and bhajans, and glorifying him, and engaging in longer duration and deeper meditation practices. So that's the month of February.
Awesome. Thank you, Prat. Lots of great holidays here. And I'm looking forward to our Shiva on discussion in a couple weeks. Can't wait.
Absolutely.
All right. So are we going to show a Guruji video?
Yes.
Okay,
that's
great.
what we will conclude with.
By abiding by the law of unity, the fundamental unity of all the world religions, then there will be world peace. Even the world wars are going on only in the name of this religion and that religion. Unfortunately, not only among religions there is quarrel, but inside the religions also. Among Hindus, Shaivites and Vaishnavites. A Shaivite would say Shiva is the only God. Vaishnavites say, no, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam, Vishnu is God. And they fight, they quarrel. Two of them came to the Buddha, the enlightened one. One said, look, this fellow says that Vishnu is great. I say Shiva is great. As you are the enlightened one, please tell us who is greater than who? Buddha asked him, have you seen Shiva? He says, no. Did your father see? I don't think so. Did your grandfather saw Shiva? I'm sorry, I don't think so. So why are you quarreling about an issue which you have not realized? You go and meditate with Om Namah Shivaya for 12 years and then come back and ask me this question. For the Vishnu fellow, the Buddha taught the same thing. He said his 7 generations have not seen Vishnu. So then you don't quarrel. You go and meditate. When both of them meditated, they knew the truth is one. Names are many. And after that they had no question. Therefore, all these divisions happen due to ignorance. Thus, when our third eye opens, we understand that Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, every ism is just like several leaves or branches of the same tree. Just like your right hand is Hinduism, left hand is Christianity, back is Islam, your chest is Buddhism, like that you are the whole. These are all parts. Each religion is like a kindergarten for the growing soul. Therefore, there is a saying Swami Vivekananda used to say, it is better to be born near a church, but it is worse to die there. It has a meaning. The meaning is it's very good to be born nearby churches, temples, etc. But if you all the time think that God is only in the church, and as soon as you get out of the church, you could be doing whatever you want, that means you are wasting your time by going to the churches. You go to church, and when you go back, you have to realize that your heart has become the church of God. It is worse to die there means if you just get stuck right there with an attachment to a building of the Mormons, of the Presbyterian or the Presbyterian or whatever, and think that 3 blocks that side you go to a church, you are going to hell. 3 blocks this side is the gateway to heaven means, are we civilized? Is that civilization? Is that culture? That just the bricks and buildings could be the gateway to heaven or hell? This is why in Paradise Lost, the great poet of cosmic consciousness, Milton, teaches, it is your mind which makes a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Manayeva manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayo. In Sanskrit language, it is the mind. Mind is its own place, can make a hell of heaven, a heaven of hell. That is why our mind should be illumined. Otherwise, the mind will be fanatic. That my way alone is true. All others are wrong. That is partially true, but could be very dangerous. Dangerous in forming the groups and in the name of God and peace, hitting at one another, and that is what all the nations are doing now. I am the chosen one, I am Jewish. I am the most chosen one, I am Islam. None of these religions have taught that. It is only the so-called organizers, the followers. So many times the Bible teaches, spirit saveth, letter killeth. And we go to the letter without going through its inner interpretation. That is why we disagree. Just at one knowledge that we are children of the same Father, Mother, God. And we call Him in different names. If that simple truth people could realize, then they have understood the Bible, then they have understood the Gita, then they have understood the Dhammapada. Otherwise, it is useless to read all scriptures and fight with one another, telling that that is religion. This is why people are not interested anymore in so-called religious lectures. Because there are so many religious cults and so-called religions. Brainwashing and constantly telling that this is the only way. That has destroyed the purpose of religion. Religion means realization of truth. And that realization shall not make you a fanatic at all. It will make you universal. Thus a Christian becomes universal Christian, Hindu a universal Hindu, Muslim a universal Muslim, and they transcend the so-called boundaries of religion. If religion is not love, my friends, why do we want a religion of hatred? Just think about, why do we want a religion if it is for hatred and war? If it is for nuclear holocaust? If it is for destruction? If religion is not for unity, of peace, of love, we do not want such a religion. If God is not love, if He is not peace, then what is He? I don't think these simple truths require that we should have a PhD or specialization.
I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast, frankly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it completely summarizes the stuff we were discussing. So,
Yes.
couldn't have said it better.
Yep. So thank you, Christiane and Vikram. Once again, it's nice to join you guys to get our second episode done. It's a great blessing to work with you both. And may all our listeners who are listening, thank you so much for your support. And please follow us, as Christiane told earlier, how you can find us on social media. If you guys have any questions for a Q&A segment that we'd like to have, if you have any questions, please do email us or reach out to us on the social media pages. We'd be happy to entertain your questions. And so because we all are going to learn something from it. So with that, just like to say goodbye and thank you so much.
Great. Thanks. Bye, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.